At what point, if Mr. Kompass had not given the unredacted report to the French, and if it had not appeared in The Guardian, when was this ever going to be made public? What can you describe what the UN's process, once it hears testimony from 9-year-old children that they were raped by soldiers in an area in which it has a mission, how is it taking this long? What is the normal process once you have such a report? Would it ever have been made public were it not provided to The Guardian?
The normal process is to hand it over to the authorities who are in a position to prosecute, and that is, in fact, what was done. And they have, in fact, been prosecuting. Of course, their investigation, their own work in this is continuing, and we respect the ability of them to continue with that investigation. Regarding the handling of evidence, as you know, we said yesterday, and I'm not going to go over all of that again, what our concerns were, but it has to do with another thing that is a key priority of the United Nations, which is to say the protection of the sort of people who place their trust in us, come forward with vital information as witnesses or as victims or as investigators. And we want to make sure that no harm comes to those people. And that's also an important priority to keep in mind.
Sure. I have one follow-up
yes,
on this.
Yes, a follow-up and then Nisar.
Okay. Because the question becomes, so what's the UN's usual procedure? If it receives allegations of rape of children, it provides it to a country. How long does it give the country? When you say there's a prosecution, has anyone been charged in the 9 months since the information was provided?
Well,
anyone?
That's not a question for me, but for the French authorities. Right. They're the ones who are conducting the prosecution.
My question to you is, once you provide information about child rape by soldiers to a country, if no one is charged, when do you go public? Was it just a fluke that The Guardian published it, or would you ever have gone public with this? That's really my question. Is there a procedure for the UN to say, children say they were raped and the country has not done anything? When does that happen?
Yes, at some point the relevant information comes out, but we also have to respect the ability of the authorities to conduct an investigation without our interference in their investigative process. We don't try to interfere with countries' domestic investigative processes. At the same time, what we did through our Human Rights Office in Bangui is conduct a human rights investigation in the late spring of 2014. That was in response to serious allegations of sexual exploitation and abuse of children by French military personnel. We tried to make sure that that will be followed up on, and in fact it is being followed up on. In terms of when it's being made public, I believe the French authorities have their own way of processing this, and you really need to ask them the question of how they disclose this sort of information as they go about this. But certainly we're not trying to prejudice or interfere with an investigation. For us, the main priority is accountability. The main priority is to make sure that whoever committed this, if there were crimes committed, that justice is done, and that the people who committed these alleged crimes are held accountable.
But is there a deadline for a country to actually prosecute somebody once they're given information such as this? Because you treat other countries differently. For example, in the DRC, DPKO has said we won't work with the army because they didn't do certain judicial things. So what's the rule? Is 9 months, a year, a year and a half?
This country is in fact doing judicial things, and we're respecting that process. Ultimately, for us, the important point is to make sure that justice is done, and we'll continue to follow up on that. But they are in fact going ahead with that process. Yes.